How's it going, guys, and welcome to Game Involved. I'm Shifty Cow, and in today's video we have another loadout for you guys, and if you do go on to enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for more awesome gaming content. So before we get into it, I have a little bit of channel news, and we've actually been working on a new intro, because the one we have right now was a free download for a template on Adobe After Effects, and this was way back when we just created the YouTube channel. We really had no idea how to use After Effects, and we didn't end up making anything customized other than the words. So right now we're working on a newer version, and we're probably going to have 3 or 4 different intros with a couple of different songs. So if you do really enjoy a new intro, be sure to tell us in the comments below. That way we know which one you guys like the most and which one to stick with. So moving on to the loadout, this was called the I Love Recoil loadout, and it really fits its name. So as you guys can probably tell from the gameplay, this loadout consists of the CZ3A1 PDW, which is actually a really good gun at close range. I had to use the JGM4 4X Chinese scope and a heavy barrel, so I wasn't allowed to use any type of grip or accessory. I normally don't use accessories, but a grip definitely would have been helpful for this loadout. Also, as my secondary, I had the 44 Magnum with a heavy barrel, and I decided to not put anything else on it because I didn't specify. And also, I was not allowed to hip fire, burst fire, or single shot. I had to ADS and full auto only. Now, before I could even start this challenge, I actually had to unlock the heavy barrel for the CZ just because I needed like 140 kills, and I've only touched this thing maybe a couple of times before I tried this challenge. So that was probably one of the biggest things I had to work on, but it is a very effective gun on close range maps. So for example, on Zavid 311, I was playing with it earlier, and just playing the center objectives, I was actually able to go like 64 and 19 because this thing just demolishes people at close range. It's got a fire rate of 1000, so obviously that's going to empty its mag really quickly and just destroy anyone in close range. But as soon as you get out to further ranges where you're going to be using a 4X scope, it's a completely different story, because obviously you're going to be tap firing, which I wasn't allowed to do, and also the damage model for this gun is really effective at close range, but after like 20 or so meters it really drops off and it's going to take a lot of shots to kill people. So that was one of the biggest challenges I had, because over like 30 meters I didn't even bother shooting at them, and I would just pull out the 44 because that's a really accurate pistol and it's a lot easier to do than trying to shoot at someone, and it pretty much just feels like a pea shooter. Like, that's the only way I can describe this gun at range. Now, because it obviously has a lot of recoil, I was really forcing myself to get into the action, try and push as far to the center of the objectives and where all the people were just clustering as much as possible, because obviously I can take advantage of this incredible fire rate, and I'm not going to be able to really be anywhere as effective at 30 meters as I would be if I'm just right up against people. So that was my main goal for trying to get people with this, is get as close to them as possible and hope they're just not paying attention, because it took a couple of times for me to realize how to aim with this thing, especially at very close range scenarios. Also, if there was just a group of enemies, like 2 or 3 people just sitting around, chances are I couldn't take them out without switching to the 44, just because this thing shoots so incredibly fast that I really didn't have any time to take out all 3. So that was definitely a problem, and you run into that a lot with fast firing guns, but it's definitely worth it if you're going to be taking out people that quickly. So it's a really solid gun, and I think a lot more people should be using it, but especially not like this, because the 4X scope is definitely a big challenge, and it really doesn't provide you with any advantage, because you're definitely not going to be shooting at range with this thing, and the heavy barrel, all that's doing is pretty much adding more recoil. So I would definitely say this is a really trolly loadout, because obviously you're not going to be throwing this on if you know all the stats of the attachments and the weapons. This just makes no sense to throw in there, and I get that, because it's really fun to have these types of challenges where there's a lot of recoil, or really the loadout just doesn't make any sense. So probably one of the biggest things that I struggled with, even though it really doesn't sound like that big of a deal, is hip fire, because a lot of times when I'm running around with PDWs or things like that, I really like to hip fire because it's a lot faster, you don't have to waste any time ADSing. And for this challenge, I wanted to hip fire so badly, because the 4X, really, it just slows me down and it makes it a lot harder to see exactly where your enemies are, because I don't know how people do it when they have the really high X scopes, or even just like snipers with a 20X. I cannot do that. I really need something that's a very low optics, so that way I can just see where the people are. Now, along with this, DICE has actually been talking about this and putting in some patches on CTE to make the PDWs a little bit better, because after going to Hardline and then coming back to Battlefield 4, you really notice that the PDWs are not all that great. Like, people have said this since the game came out, and there's really not too many reasons to use something like this over the ACWR, where you're going to have more range and a similar fire rate. So DICE has actually been working on this in CTE, and hopefully we'll see a slight increase in the PDW's damage, maybe a couple more people running around with it. But other than that, I think they're in a pretty decent position right now because they're pretty crippled by range, but they do dominate in close range. Like if you have a PDW and you're going up against a standard player with, I don't know, an M416, chances are you're going to win. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like down below, and if you have any loadouts or video suggestions, you can leave those down in the comments below. Be sure to check out our Twitter, guys, and until next time, stay buttery.